Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the weekend in the Porsche Cup Brasil. What an amazing battle we are going to have as we gear ourselves up for the next round of the championship here at the Termas Río Hondo circuit in Argentina. A really exciting and thrilling battle as the drivers venture out in the gorgeous Argentine sunshine for the qualifying session. 4 sessions in total as the drivers will head out here in the beautiful region of Santiago del Estero in Argentina. It is one of the few weekends of the year where we leave the native Brazil of the championship and we step into welcome territory, if unfamiliar. There are going to be 4 qualifying sessions that we walk our way through over the course of the battles here, all 20 minutes in duration. And we will have session 1 in the Porsche Carrera Cup as well as session 2 in the Porsche Carrera Cup. And then we will continue on with the sessions in the Challenge Championship. 2 sessions across these 2 categories as well. But this is a fabulous race circuit, the Termas de Río Hondo, former location for the FIA World Touring Car Championship. And it really does give us magnificent battles out on the course. Everybody knows just how competitive this championship can be. And certainly in this particular contest, we're going to have some really fantastic battles again. Everyone knows just how tricky the circuit can be at the best of times. But certainly in these races, we're always used to some fantastic battles out on the course. We'll see some good rides from the competitors. Obviously, this weekend, with it being the endurance race, each car is going to be driven by 2 separate drivers. We have Sousa and Osman. We have Roman Simkovic and Nelson Piquet Jr. Miguel Paludo sharing his car with Helmeister. Once again, Rodrigo Melo and Thiago Camilo are going to share their Porsche together. Enzo Elias teams up with Marcel Muller. So that's going to be an interesting run there from the 25. That is the man who is going to try and give us an interesting run right from the start. That's Paulo Sousa. So already some intriguing battles from the contenders in the field here. But we're going to see some really exciting and intriguing battles from the contenders as they continue to ramp up the attack here on the Termas de Río Hondo circuit. Last time out in the endurance battle, Rubens Barrichello was in town and he was able to come through in fantastic fashion with Werner Neugebauer. And the good news for Rubens Barrichello fans is that they have decided to team up and work together once again. So it is going to be Werner Neugebauer along with Rubens Barrichello that will team up together in the number 8 Porsche. They took the victory last time out at Estoril. Will be a truly exceptional battle for the contenders as they race for supremacy and hoping for another victory once again. So we are currently watching in close proximity here Giafoni, who's hoping to have a really good run of it. And there is the number 1 Porsche, obviously usually raced by Alci Velmanito, Alci Velman, I should say. Alci Velmanito is, of course, the son who is also competing in this category. So always great to see these competitors put on a good showcase. Alci Velmanito, of course, sharing the number 1 Tag Heuer Porsche with Guillermo Salas as they will battle away for supremacy in the number 1 Porsche, the Tag Heuer car. At the moment, the leading battle is currently from Peter Ferter, who is teaming up with Diego Nunez this weekend. Drivers obviously trying to put on a good showcase. We're riding on board with Francisco Horta, looking at the race car from Marcel Muller. Francisco Horta obviously sharing his car with Fiat this weekend. Always exciting to see these guys push the barriers and try to go for an exciting run. But it's going to be a really tall order as the competitors are obviously looking to have a very tough race out there. It really does lend itself to good racecraft as around the course. I think you're going to see some good pressure from the contenders. Just looking on. Muller, of course, sharing his car over the course of the weekend with Enzo Elias, the Stock Car Pro Brazil driver. You get a lot of the drivers who are obviously by our pro drivers on a regular basis, actually trained by their coaches in this round of the championship. It's always family, friends atmosphere. Race against them. It was an endurance race of some kind. So it's really nice these guys get the chance to put a display with their stablemates and with who make them the competitive racers that they are. So who is who competing? Well, there's obviously going to be some contenders competing over the course of the weekend. So let's talk you through who's who as the drivers are out there for their first. Alcifeld Salas are teaming up. So are Franco Giafoni and Ross. Miguel is joined by Alan Helmeister, Rodrigo Melo and Werner Neugebauer team up again in the hope that they can take, as they did last time out at Estoril. Lucas Salas is once again joined us. Pedro Boisel and Ricardo Mauricio, two famous from the world of the Brazilian racing, teaming up, and so too are Enzo Elias and Marcel Müller. We just see them spot. Enzo at 43.687, and it's worth pointing out, of course, collective lap times drivers across session 1, 2. Only 2 sessions on this occasion for the contenders across the competition. Carlos Campos is out there this, and he is joined the 500 winner Tony. What an opportunity! Junior is teaming up with Sergio Ramayo. Gadas will be part of Chiasi. Peter Fertier and Diego Nunez, the sharp end of the. Peter Fertier, but he was in the lead at one stage, is in 19th position. Then Francisco Horta and William Frere. Those two are obviously right up at the sharp end of the field as well, having got us off to a relatively good start. There's Francisco Horta that has gone out for this session. It'll be William Frere that goes out for session 2 as we watch the number 8 car. This is Rubens Barrichello, partner of him. This is the 29 car back into the garage as well for adjustments. So that is the car that is Rodrigo Melo and Thiago Camilo. Then we have Ruman Zimkovic and Nelson Piquet Jr. They are together sharing the car. And then Nelson Marcondes and Luis Razia, who are working together in collaboration. Lino Perez and Beto Gressa are also sharing a car this weekend. But then we also have Marco Pisani sharing a car with Renan Guerra, Leonardo Sanchez and Attila Abreu. So that'll be an interesting one. They're currently in 23rd position with a 157.7, so they haven't really got up to speed yet. Leonardo Sanchez and Attila Abreu. Salza and Galid Osman in a fantastic situation for the contenders. And then we have Bruno Campos and Nicolas Costa. They will be sharing a car together. Ramon Alcaraz and Matias Ioro. And then we also have Piero Cefali and Edu Guedes. Eduardo Minossi also sharing his car this weekend with Caio Collet, the former Red Bull Junior. And then we have Seba Malucelli and Marcos Gomez, two drivers who have plenty of experience between them. And of course, when we get into the heat of the battle, we're also going to have some great drivers teaming up in the challenge category, but we'll come to that when we get to the third qualifying session. On board, we're obviously watching drivers come into and out of the pit lane at the moment. We just had the onboard camera there with Miguel Peludo leaving the pits for the first time, and also the treble one, that's Pipo Barrichello. So 3 members of the Barrichello family in one race. My goodness me, are they working hard here to make sure everybody is connected together. So as it stands at the moment, it is currently Salas who has the top with 3.72, sharing his car, of course, with Rafael Suzuki. Rafael Suzuki, who has, of course, been a competitor in this year's Stock Car Pro Series, a race winner from the start of the year as well. But it's Lucas Salas who has taken the top spot for the time being in front of Enzo Elias, who is currently running in 2nd position. So let's run through things. Lucas, 7.2 lap time. So Lucas Salas and Rafael Spot just looking at the 100 car. Coming past Uccelli, the man who is, of course, in that car with Marcos Gomez. We've had some fantastic race far already in Portugal. And certainly the last time we had a great endurance in Portugal, we had some great battles. But Werner Neugebauer and Rubens Barrichello getting the job done at the top in a great situation. Salas currently still has a 1:43.372. This is a replay. What do we see? Whoops. Now that, I think you'll find, is almost looks sure has been picked up there. It was one of the Porsches. I kind of suggest that might have been Nelson Marconde having some difficulties, but certainly a tough race battle to come if the lap times are right. Second between first and third position, so Luc really found pace in the initial part of the broad and has certainly found an extra second on everybody else at this point. So Elias P2, Werner Neugebauer from Lino Perez, Nelson Marco Campos and Felipe Giafoni, then Simon Malucelli, Pedro Boisel in the top 10. And you'll see it's the endurance race be a pretty hot and intense competition. The driver clears some space and have an access to track. Honestly, Río Hondo really can be exceptional at the best of the time. And the drivers assigned the best of things as they to make the progress moving forward. Brief on board there with the number 7 car. This is Miguel Pel trying to continue the advantage count up. It's a great race battle. Just in the Porsche Endurance Brazil, and I hope it's going to be again. Still the defenders putting on a good performance, but the lap time that was set is still the benchmark, but he's just trying a good run of the draw. Still the contenders putting on a good display here, and that's Yosemar Junior. Yosemar Junior in the center. Spins the car there, he hasn't beached that in the gravel, and he can actually get that going. If not, oh no, don't tell me he's embedded in the gravel. Oh, Yosemar, just a few feet further forward, and okay there. But I'm afraid Yosemar Junior really has buried the number 27 car in the gravel. Here it is again, just a little too early on the throttle. He's stopped the car, he's pulled it off the road, but unfortunately he's found the gravel trap. And that really is game over for Yosemar Junior in qualifying in this particular phase of the session. Now the question is, are we going to stop the session here because that car is technically in a dangerous position? So there's definitely scope for it. And there it is, red flags. Unfortunately, I think that was fairly predictable once we got to that stage where Yosemar Junior's car had essentially slid off the line. Very unfortunate for Yosemar Junior, not where he wanted to be at all. And I'm afraid that's him beached. So red flags in this session, that definitely doesn't help the cause. So for Yosemar Junior, that's going to be him. I don't think he'll get another lap in, and I have to say, it's the best of whether Sergio Romeo, who he's sharing the car with, will get a lap in as well. So things can get pretty tricky for the competitors out here. And it's certainly going to be a pretty contentious end to their session. And Yosemar Junior ending up 16th, 2.5 seconds from the pace. I am surprised it's taken so long for the lap times to start to come down amongst the leading competitors. Starting that amongst the competitors, there is Simone bringing the 100 Travelex car into the pits. New livery for him this weekend, now that he's got that new partnership with Travelex and Valvoline. Oh dear, that's well and truly beached for Yosemar Junior. So he's going to get a toe out of the gravel. And once that has been completed, we'll be able to go racing once again in fine fashion. So we're lined up in the pit lane again. Here's how it currently stacks up. Lucas Salas and Alan Helmeister, who's now gone into second position in the number 7 car he shares with Mika Peludo. Third for Enzo, and then Fifo Barrichello in 4th place. Linu Perez and Marcos Regadas from Werner Neugebauer in 7th, and Rodrigo Melo in 8th place. 9th for Nelson Marcondes, 10th for Alsu Feldman. Then Bruno Campos and Felipe Giovanni. Seba Malucelli and Pedro Bozel. Then Paulo Souza, Yosemar Junior, Roman Zimkiewicz, and then Carlos Campos from Eduardo Menossi, Leonardo Sanchez, Piero Cifali, and then Marco Pisani in front of Roman Alcaraz. And then the 2 cars that have not yet set a competitive time, Francisco Horta and Peter Ferter, who's had the most recent times deleted, I do believe. They are back in pit lane on 1:47.074 and a 1:47.851. No, they have got times in the mix then, by the look of it. So I'm not entirely sure why they're not showing up. Oh, now they are. There was an issue with my timing screen. But Francisco Horta has a 1:47.0. Peter Verter has a 1:47.8. So that is a disparity of 4.4 seconds compared to the leading car of Lucas Salas. So you may have seen there that Yosemar Junior has now got his car up and running again. So Yosemar Junior back up to running. When his car has been recovered to the pits, we should be able to get the session restarted here in qualifying. And so Lucas Salas currently looking good to restart with Alan Helmeister and Enzo Elias in the top 3 positions, hoping for a little bit more from the more in the final 4 minutes. I would say that's actually doubtful at the moment, but certainly a competitive time set by Lucas Salas at 1:43.372. Helmeister was just able to squeeze in the 1:43.4 that he managed to post before the timer ran for the contenders. But now we're going to get ourselves back to speed again as we race forward one more time. But as we get ourselves ready to go back under starters orders again, the cars leaving pit lane, and a couple more minutes have been added to the qualifying session in order to complete the running of qualifying in a fair and even manner for all the teams and drivers. So an excellent opportunity then for the Porsche Brazil Cup to venture back out onto the circuit here at Termas de Río Hondo in Argentina, and look forward to an exciting run. Out onto the circuit. Lucas Salas and Alan Helmeister, the top two drivers. Enzo Elias still 0.3 of a second away, as the engineers can only look on and hope that the adjustments they've made to tyre pressures or setup adjustments, whatever they might be, are going to be the difference that puts their driver into pole position. The time they have to beat is a 1:43.372. Always good to see the mechanics working hard on the stats and the data books. Those are the most valuable textbooks in motorsport. They're the ones with all the correct information, all the data, all of the tyre pressures, everything the drivers need to work on to get the balance working in a good measured position. So still the drivers work hard and they work on into the night. But it was always going to be an exciting charge forward from the contenders. They knew it was going to be a hard pressure cooker. And there is the number 70, Lucas Salas, back up to speed. Look at the amount of exertion he's putting into the car through these curves, trying to keep the car favorable and pointing in the right direction. You really do flirt with the limits with these particular Porsches. With the brake bias set more adjusted towards the rear, of course, it can be a very exhausting, very tiring car to drive. But if you get the sweet spot right on setup, these cars really do give back. It's particularly exciting to observe. So Lucas Salas currently up at the top spot. Alan Helmeister still in second position. Third for Enzo Elias, fourth for FIFA Barrichello. The drivers are still dialing in the cars, trying to get themselves up to speed and having a really tough race of it. And they want to have a really strong race of it as the contenders charge forward. So Lucas Salas in the lead of the race from Alan Helmeister, and then Enzo Elias from FIFA Barrichello, Linu Perez and Marcos Regadas. Still running a very solid race as they continue to charge forward at the sharp end of the dais. Werner Neugebauer, 7th position from Rodrigo Melo, Nelson Marcondes and Elsie Feldman, Bruno Campos, Felipe Giafoni, Seba Malucelli and Pedro Boisel, and then Paulo Souza, Josimar Junior after that snuff earlier in the qualifying session. That's obviously really compromised him and the team. Though whether he'll get out again for this session, I think is doubtful. They might still be able to put it together for the second session if they can clear the gravel out of the car and make the adjustments ready for session 2. Up to 15th comes Roman Zimkovic. He bangs in a good lap time. 2 minutes 14. We're going to see a replay. Now, who is this? Oh, that's a little bit of a run wide there. Now, that looks to me like that is one of the rookie drivers, I think. I wouldn't be at all surprised there if that was Paulo Souza. Couldn't quite make out who it was. It might have been Bruno Campos, actually. So the contenders certainly having a tough ride of it as we get to the closing stages of the run here. The contenders having a really solid race of it here to try and find the space. Oh, more running wide. And look at the dust that is now kicked up as the drivers find the limit of adhesion. That's the second time as well for 56, in fact. So I was incorrect. Pushing hard to try and get lap time in and running wide off the circuit. That's Peter Verter. That's twice now. Peter Verter has found the limits, found the length and the width of the exertion of the car, and has found himself in a difficult position. So Peter Verter still trying to make up the difference in terms of the pure speed of the car. not easy to find the distance in the closing seconds of the session here. It's been a bit of a tricky situation for all the contenders, as natural. But there is the 888, Linu Perez, trying to find that little bit of extra speed. Enzo Elias now finding the speed and off the road. Off the road goes Peter Vertel. That's the third time for Peter Vertel. Dirty tyres, pushing his own limits. Not able to get the car slowed down in time for the corner of the apex. Well, that was always going to be tricky, but certainly flirting with the limits of adhesion there. 10 seconds remaining in the session, so it really is now or never for the drivers to find that little bit of extra pace, and that is the Elefante car. So I'm afraid that's game over in the qualifying session then for the 25, Paulo Sousa. He gets it going again, but that's his last lap done and dusted. He will not get another one in the can now. The drivers are still finding a very good race of it as they continue forward. It's not going to be very easy to predict how this is going to conclude, but certainly Enzo Elias' time, now that he's gone up to the top spot, a 1:42.96, that'll do nicely. Lucas Salas still in second place on a 1:43. Then Helmeister, Neugebauer up to fourth place, and Francisco Horta charging his way up to fifth position. No improvement then for Elias. Oh no, he has found an improvement, a 1:42.967. That's the last lap of his session. So he has found another 4/10 on Lucas Salas. Nelson Marcondes and Viva Barricacos Vegadas. Lucas Salas does not improve the lap. What about Werner Neugebauer? Does he improve? No, he does not. So I think that's going to be all she wrote. A really tough mission then to find the pole position at Termas de Río Hondo. Great circuit, great opener, fast flowing combinations of corner. And I tell you what, even amazing that the competitors are running through in close proximity and having a really good race of it to the last here. Checkered flag is out, and it will be Enzo Elias that takes the top spot. Lucas Salas in second position in front of Alan Helmeister, Werner Neugebauer, and Francisco Horta. Third position for Alan Helmeister. That's a very good qualifying run for him. There's a 1:43.456. And that is all she wrote in the first of our 4 sessions. Well, somebody's camera is not quite operating well. You only get the too hot shutting down notice when the camera has decided the Argentine sunshine very much. So what an incredible turnaround of events then for Elias. He takes the top spot. Somebody's very happy. Marcel Muller, grateful indeed to Enzo Elias for the hard work, putting the Ben car into pole position. Certainly for the time being, of course. It's not a confirmed pole position, because you have to combine the times from session 1 and session 2. Then, of course, we get to do exactly the same thing again for the challenge. As been an interest for the excitement, great banter and badinage through those 20 minutes, interrupted, of course, by a red flag. But it really has been an immense time, an incredible battle in the first of our 4 qualifying sessions. Another 20 minutes will go on the clock, and that will be for the next run, session 2, the moment when the drivers that we have seen in the car get out and their co-drivers get in. That means that we're going to see Enzo Elias swap in for Marcel Muller. Rafa Suzuki takes over for Lucas Salas. Then Miguel Paludo gets in the car for Alan Helmeister. Rubens Barrichello will now take over from Werner Neugebauer. William Frey on Francisco Horta. Then Guillermo Salas on Alcy Feldman. Ludi Serrazia. Marco Duda Barrichello will take. Then Jeff Giassi taking over for Regadas. Gressa for Perez. Mauricio for Boistel. Camilo for Melo. Costa for Campos. Gomez for Malucelli. Cesar Ramos and Felipe Giafone. And then we have Nelson Piquet Jr. and Roman Simkovic. Tony Kanaan, the Indy 500 winner, will take over from Carlos Campos. And then Sergio Romayo will take over for Yosemar Junior, provided, of course, that the gravel has been removed from the wheel arches on the number 27 Porsche. Then it is going to be Diego Nunez taking over for Fertier, Caio Collet on Eduardo Manossi. Galid Osman takes over for Paulo Souza. And then it is Attila Abreu in for Leo Sanchez. Guerra for Pisani, Guedes for Kifali, and then Yoro for Ramon Alcaraz. So we allow the teams to do that. Drivers in, out, and drivers out, in. They swap over in a fine formation. The gorgeous setting here at Termas de Río Hondo, right by the coast, here in the gorgeous country of Argentina. Such a brilliant landscape and such a great heritage of motorsport, of course. We may not see too much of it nowadays, but Argentina has such a rich history of motorsport, what with the fantastic race circuit from the Oscar Juan Galvez Autodromo that hosted the Argentine Grand Prix in Formula One from the 1970s all the way up to 1981, and then again from 95 all the way to 98. This has not been a race circuit that has held the Argentine Grand Prix, of course, but it has certainly been a great race circuit to welcome a lot of great motor racing over the years. The World Touring Car Championship, of course, came here a few years before. And this is a country with a lot of pedigree for motor racing. Of course, it is the country that gave us one of the greatest racing drivers of all time. Nobody can lose that argument. Juan Manuel Fangio, the man who taught us to strive to be the best without ever actually believing that we are. Currently with Colapinto into Formula One and put Argentina back on the international and global motorsport map again. And in his first couple of races in Formula One, of course, Franco Colapinto has managed to put himself into a point-scoring position, scoring more points in 2 races than the man he replaced, Logan Sargent, was able to do in a year and a half of Formula One. Just looking at some of the highlights from the previous session out on the course. Piero Cifali in the 74 Boss car. Great to see them do such a great job and continue to motor forward. The Tech Bond Porsche number 74. Obviously a very competitive race car. So we get to see some truly exciting performances from these guys. They'll want to put on a very good display, of course, when their co-drivers hand over and take over the cars. There's Felipe Giafone. You may remember, of course, last time out in Interlagos, he had a pretty nasty rollover. I can tell you that the car was far more damaged than he was, thank goodness. But fortunately, he has been able to get himself back into a competitive car again. They've rebuilt it, and now he is ready to go racing once again here in the endurance phase of the race. So there is Paulo Souza. He'll hand his car over to Galid Osman in a few short minutes' time. So the battles will continue. There's the treble 8, Lino Perez, sharing the car there with Beto Gressa over the course of this weekend. But Lino Perez, of course, a very talented racing driver in his own right. He's been one of the front runners through the course of the last 18 months or so in the Porsche Cup Brasil. There's the number 7. That is the car that's being shared with Miguel Peludo, currently sharing the car with Alan Hellmeister. Hellmeister was the one who managed to put himself into 3rd position. So the red flags, of course, that we saw in the previous qualifying session. Hopefully we're not going to see any more red flags for the course of the race, because the last thing we want to do is to have more delays. Obviously the organizers here want to make sure that meetings 6 o'clock, and we're getting ever closer to that point, of course, now. That was certainly the original plan, but obviously having the red flag really pushes to a further point of that boat. Of course, the organisers do have several powers open to them. If they're running short on time, they can always reduce the length of the qualifying sessions. They would probably only do that, I think, for the Carrera Challenge Cup. Obviously, there is some discrepancy on that conversation. Sometimes they can withdraw the session or reduce the session, maybe from 20 minutes down to 15. or even if they think it's only necessary to get 10 minutes of running, they can even have that in the options. But certainly for this second session, the drivers will swap over for their colleagues and they'll take over for each other now. So now we're going to have Beto Gressa in the treble 8. There is the number 3 with Cesar Ramos now at the wheel. Cesar Ramos now, of course, who is the coach for Felipe Giafone. .5 minutes left in the session as the drivers start to warm up the tires and brakes, start to find where the pace is here at a very challenging circuit. It's a very technical race circuit here at Termas de Río Hondo. You're always going to find a little bit more pressure, a little bit more of a challenge from the contenders out on the course. But it should be a really impressive battle for all of the contenders here as they race in close proximity left of the sessions. So they want to be in a good position, but the treble is getting up to speed. Of course, being driven by Luc Monteiro. He's Monteiro just trying to lead on the car through the apex in the hope that he's going to get a really solid race battle. The contenders are obviously having a really solid race of it as they try and lean on the car in the faster apexes in the sweeper sections. So what will FIFO and Duda Barrichello do in the early phases of the race? Tomorrow is going to be a fascinating debate. We've obviously been sharing the car now a couple of times this year, obviously out in Portugal, where it was very much a nice little holiday for the drivers going abroad to Europe. This is a little bit closer to home, of course, being in Argentina. Nowhere near as big a travel as it was in Estoril in the summer. Watching now Miguel Paludo taking over his beloved number 7. And watching the drivers get back up to speed. Good effort from Alan Hellmeister. He was the one in the car previously. To speed again. And certainly for Miguel Paludo, there is a real hunger, there is a real thirst to continue putting on a good display here. Wants to get a similar sort of pace, a similar sort of lap time to his stablemate, Alan Hellmeister. You don't want to be too far away from the edge of the pressure cooker here as the drivers drill away in close formation. And now we're going to try and see what the first banker laps are for the drivers. Certainly getting a 1:43.2 under his belt, sharing that car, of course, with Marco Pisani. And Duda Barrichello has come through on a 1:43.63. That's pretty good, actually. And let's talk a little bit about Duda Barrichello, because in 2024, he's having a fairly decent race season. Over in Stock Car Pro Brazil, he's a championship contender. Here in Porsche Cup Brasil, he has been a front runner in the endurance brigade. Sharing the car, of course, with brother FIFO. There is Alan Hellmeister, who's been watching along. See how things have been going for Miguel Paludo, who takes back his own race car. Now, Alcif Feldman is having a relatively good run of it at the moment in the number 1 Tag Heuer Porsche. So the hope is there that he's going to be able to keep the bandwagon rolling and keep the statistics favorable. What are we going to see a replay of here? Whoa! That was an unbelievable save. Goodness me. That was a tough one there for the number 3 of Cesar Ramos. Really losing the car there, managing to catch it in the way that Yosemar Junior just didn't in the previous qualifying session. So still the drivers battling on, hoping for another good run of it. And up to the top spot now comes Eduardo Minossi. Eduardo Minossi now finds a fast lap time. Very good pace indeed from him. A very good race trim potentially building up for him. in the hope that there's going to be a really solid race of it. So Eduardo Manossi definitely starting to look like he's got some good laps. Much quicker will these drivers go? It's actually Caio Collet who's at the wheel, I should point out, because Eduardo Manossi is in the car for the first session. It's actually Caio Collet. As into the pits comes Cesar Ramos after going off the road, well, nearly going off the road, I should say, to get himself into position. But certainly an interesting challenge for the contenders as they try to find a little bit more speed. There is the 70, the car that has obviously been exchanged for Rafael Suzuki. Around racing in colours very similar to those that he races in the Stock Car Pro Brazil. It's great to see Rafael Suzuki really finding his feet again in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. These drivers really having a solid race of it. This is a circuit that really lends itself to want to push cars. They want to be driven quickly around here. You've really got to lean on it and have a really good hit. But it's always quite nice to see the drivers really maximizing their potential and finding a good solid run of it. So there is the number 544. Marcel Müller has taken his race car back from Enzo Elias, and he's definitely a potential candidate for the pole position here. So let's see if Marcel Müller has got what it takes to move this on a pace, continue to find a little bit more speed and move it on forward. So Marcel Müller with 12 minutes remaining in the session, making his way back into the pits by the look of it. So they clearly feel that they can make a little bit more of an adjustment to the car in the second part of the session. So hopefully we're going to get to see a little bit more from the cars as they move forward. An excellent performance from the contenders as they continue to race forward. A really solid race battle for the contenders here. 12 minutes left in the session. Currently on the top spot, Caio Collet with his time of a 1 second quicker. We're currently watching Thiago Camilo himself up to speed in the car that he shares this weekend with Rodrigo Melo. So it's obviously been a very tricky situation for the contenders. They continue to race on for glory. So the drivers still having a really solid race battle of it. But several drivers now coming into the pit lane to try and find a little bit more speed from the car, hoping to find just a little bit more pace. But 11 minutes on the car, 11 minutes on the clock, I should say, for these cars to still try and find a little bit more speed, a little bit more pace to move their way further forward. There's Miguel Peludo, still working to try and find that little bit of excess speed. He may have an opportunity to work his way further forward, but it's going to be an interesting race out there. The drivers will obviously find as much as they can possibly extract from the car. 10.5 minutes left of the session. Peludo is currently in 4th place. As Marcel Müller, they've made the adjustments. He's already making his way back out onto the circuit again. And we have 10 minutes left of the session. There is also the 25 venturing out onto the course. That's the Elefante car of Gary Rosman. There's the 77, that's William Frere. Sharing his car, of course, with Francisco Horta. So the contenders still having a great race of it in 10 minutes of the first part of the session. 10 minutes more running still to come here at Termas de Río Hondo, as the drivers are still trying to find that little bit of excess pace. It's a hard lap to try and match, actually. Lap time set there by Caio Collet. 3:2.7. It's a 3.7 at least to match the pace. And that's only if you're Rafael Suzuki. Everybody else has got to go by at least 0.8 of a second if they want pole position. And of course, when the two times are combined, that will obviously set the grid. We'll talk about the grid in more detail tomorrow, of course, when everything has been added up in close proximity. But it's the median time that we're obviously trying to get here. So at the moment, Caio Collet He's trying to find a time that's good enough for the pole position, and they have a time shared together of a 1:43.019. So obviously the medium time is the one that's going to give us the strong run. Into the pits then, an adjustment of the positions there for Miguel Paludo. They brought the car into the pits, and they've obviously changed things up and given us a little bit more excitement out onto the course. But there is the treble one. This is Dudu Barrichello, the young son of the Grand Prix driver Rubens. A chance for him to make headway while the sun shines here in Argentina and come up with the goods to get a pole position lap together. But at the moment, it is the lap set by Caio Collet. Caio Collet's time of a 1:42.337, that is still the top spot. And a really solid race battle for them at the moment. But everybody working in very close proximity. Obviously, you've got to venture out onto the course to find the medium lap time. Keep arms together from the two sessions, and that will give you the median that will put it together. We'll talk about that in a little more detail, of course, tomorrow when we've got a little bit of warm-up in the build-up of the race. That's going to be a long battle, of course, as well. That race at least 1.5 minutes of great race action to come here. And Caio Collet is currently fastest in the second of the two qualifying sessions with a very decent time, actually. 1:42.337. 0.3 of a second quicker what we've seen so far from Suzuki. And then in third position, Marcel Muller getting a 1:43.07 out of it. Miguel Paludo on a 1. Showing his car with Marco Bizzani in 5. Well, that's changed. In fact, that's literally changed in the last few seconds, because up into the top position, we've got a nice bit of charging battles coming through. Still in P5 at the moment, actually. I thought that had changed, it hasn't. Beto Gressa is still in 6 in front of William Freire, and then Guillermo Salas, Carlos Osman, Dudu Barrichello, and Carlos. The man behind the wheel of the number 8. You're probably wondering, where's Rubens Barrichello? Well, they're currently in 11th position. Make that 12th now, because it looks like Pedro Boisel has been able to move the team up into 11th position. 6 minutes remaining of the second of our qualifying sessions. Certainly a good run so far from Rubens Barrichello. 12th position. But up to the top end of the session has come Guillermo Salas. I think he's got 8th position just in front of Khalid Osman. Salas and Osman now in 8th and 9th places respectively. Going to be a great run for those two competitors to finish off in the close proximity of the racing. So still up at the sharp end of the field there, Caio Collet. Looking for a really solid sharp end of the field there. 1:47 of a second faster than anything that his rivals have been a challenge for. Certainly for Rafael Suzuki, he's still there in second position for the time being. But it's going to be a really scrap, as all the competitors are putting on a really exciting showcase. 100 that's being shared. Seba Molucelli, and is currently behind the wheel, Marcos Gomez. It's what they were just sort of replay in but with 5 minutes still to go in a qualifying session. Obviously at the end of this 5-minute session, we'll then roll it over, and then which will be 2 more 20-minute qualifying sessions for each driver to get out there on the course and try to set the pace. So what can Barrichello do? Are we going to move our way up into the top 5? At the moment we are not, and nor is Rubens Barrichello in the number 8 car. There is Rubens. You can see that distinctive trademark helmet design of his. Very distinguishable through the window of the number 8 Porsche. So Rubens Barrichello doing his best to try the car up into the top 10. At the moment, He's not quite managing to do that. They've slipped down to 15th position. A few more cars have been able to make up some spaces on the qualifying rankings. So at the moment, it's now William Frère who's gone up to the top spot. William Frère on a 1:42.320, so only 17 thousandths of a second quicker than Caio Collet. Third position for Ricardo Mauricio. Nelson Piquet Jr. P4 in front of Rafael Suzuki and Beto Gressa. Then Diego Nunes in front of Marcel Muller, and then Jeff Giassi and Miguel Paludo. 10th position. Guerra, Costa, Salas, Osman, and Dudu Barrichello in front of Tony Kanaan. Tony Kanaan 16th, Barrichello now in 17th place. 18th for Iorio, and then Ramayo from Razia. Khalid Osman, by the way, has just banged in a lap time good enough for 8th, 1:42.962. Behind Iorio and Ramayo, we have Razia and Attila Abreu, then Marco Gomez, Thiago Camilo, and Edu Guedes. Couple more changes. Caio Collet goes back on top. 1:41.95. Another stop. Caio Collet. A quick lap time at the end of the session there. 3 minutes to go. What can Rubens Barrichello do? It's going to be good enough for the top three. I tell you what, Suzuki is though. Rafael Suzuki's gone third quickest. Just a shave off the time of William Frère. So a really solid battle from the contenders as they are really trying to find a little bit more pace here. Suzuki now up to third position, ahead of Ricardo Mauricio, the former Red Bull Junior driver, one of the very first Red Bull Juniors, of course, Ricardo Mauricio. Then Nelson Piquet Jr. up to fifth position, where he was, but now Guerra has come up to second position. And Guillermo Salas has just displaced Nelson Piquet Jr. A fantastic run in the top 6 placings. It's been a really exciting challenge for the contenders. But certainly Caio Collet, I don't think this lap is going to be beaten very easily. A 1:41.957. It's 0.3 of a second clear of Guerra. William Frère in third. Rafael Suzuki now fourth place in front of Pedro Boisel and Ricardo Mauricio. Guillermo Salas currently P6. Then we have Nelson Piquet Jr., the first ever Formula E champion. Just a whisker in front of Beto Gressa. Well, the Barrichellos are definitely coming through. Dudu Barrichello now in 9th position. And Rubens Barrichello has come up to, that is 11th place, just in behind the 56 car. That is the car of Diego Nunes. Cesar Ramos creeps up to 13th. So not a bad run there from Cesar Ramos. Then we have Khalid Osman from Sergio Romayo, Marcel Muller, Jeff Giassi, and Miguel Paludo way down in 17th. Miguel Paludo. This is not what was in the script for the number 7 crew at all. Miguel Paludo on the home sharp end. He's got a minute left. Starting or started a fast lap. To bring himself up to the right position. But it's a really tall mission now for any driver to try and catch up to the time set by Caio Collet. A 1:41.957 is pretty tough to beat now. 30 seconds left of the session. If any driver wants to start a flying lap, they're going to have to in the next 30 seconds. If they're already on a flying lap, then they've got to maximize it and hope that it's going to be enough. There is the 5:44, Marcel Muller. He could take full advantage of the situation here, of course. Marcel Muller currently finds himself down in 15th position, a full second off the pace, 1.1 away from the pole time, provisionally set there by Caio Collet. The time runs down to 0. So can Marcel Muller find something, extract something out of this Porsche in the closing stages of qualifying? He's going to come across the line. Where is Marcel Muller going to go? He comes through across the checkered flag. He does not improve. So still a 1.1 second. A really tough mission then for Marcel Muller, as he finds himself there in 15th position. That's a really tough qualifying session for the man fighting for this endurance and, of course, the sprint crown as well. So a fabulous situation. Look at the scenes down in the pits. An excellent run for Ko Collet and Eduardo Minossi to take the pole position for the second qualifying session. But of course, an exciting battle all the way. The median time, though, for the top spot on pole position, Rafael Suzuki and Lucas Salas. They get pole position 8 times together. So an excellent run then for Rafael Suzuki and Lucas Salas. They will be on pole position. Marcel Muller got 15th in this session, but thanks to Enzo Elias's brilliant lap in the last one, they will still be second on the grid. Then the 77, William Frere, battling with Francisco Horta. They will be third on the grid, ahead of the number 8 car of Rubens Barrichello and Werner Neugebauer. And then the 7 of Miguel Paludo and Alan Hellmeister. Thank goodness to Alan Hellmeister. He got some good laps in. So the scenes for the number 70 as Rafael Suzuki and Lucas Salas will get the pole position in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil endurance race here at Termas de Río Hondo in Argentina. The combination of the 2 sessions working out in Lucas Salas and Rafael Suzuki's favor, absolutely what they were hoping for. So the scenes down there as Rafael Suzuki and Lucas Salas celebrate their achievement. It's a great performance from both drivers. They were able to make it work in very good proximity. So they can be very happy with the way this has shaken down. And of course, you can see already at the edge of the pit lane, the challenge cars are getting ready to head out. No waiting around, no messing about, because obviously there are 2 sessions that we now need to focus in on in the challenge category. This is where we get to talk about the drivers that are actually going to be sharing the cars classes, because obviously we've spoken about the pole position in the other categories on the course. Now there's going to be some really interesting driver combinations as the drivers run in good proximity. But in the Porsche Cup Brasil, we've got 2 great classes. Of course, we have the Carrera, have the challenge competitors as well. So in the Porsche Cup Brasil, we obviously have the Carrera challenge drivers. Sadagler sharing his car with Fabio Carbone. Andrei Gajinski is sharing his car this weekend with Thiago Gonçalves. Then Leonardo Herman with Vitor Batista. Then Giuliano Bertuccelli and Pietro. Matthias Roque and Felipe Batista. So those 2 are obviously going to be interesting combinations. Antonella Bassani and Letizia Buffoni, all-female combination. Antonella Bassani, the Challenge Carrera Cup champion, the teenager, along with the skating superstar in the X, Letizia Buffoni. Luis Landi and Tom Filio, they will share a car together, as will Eric Santos and Gabriel Horber. Nito and the Stock Car Pro double champion, Gabriel Casagrancha. Iago Garcia is sharing his car with Cecilia, the 3rd female driver in the field. And then Claudio Reina and Salves as well. So there is the trophy for pole position for Lucas Salas and Rafael Suzuki. Pole position combined in the Porsche Cup Brasil category. We'll get to see who lifts that trophy in the Cup. And may I say, looking at ocean, that looks like a fabulous. When they just recently got into jet skiing and scuba diving, managing thanks to my college series, Asia karting series out in Malaysia. But that looks absolutely hilarious fun. Good to see a fully clean green session out of the battles here. Obviously, it was always going to be tricky to see who was going to get the best of it as the drivers ran through. But now we're going to get to see a really exciting combination of the competitors in the Challenge Cup. Good to see the Porsche Carrera Cup racers having a good solid run of it and a full green session. 20 minutes, no real spins and dramas. The closest we really got was Cesar Ramos losing the back end of his car, clearly having an imbalance of the setup on the rear brake bias. They managed to come in and make the adjustments. There's Piero Cifali and Edu Guedes in the Boss Cup, and there's the number 12, the all-black machine, a car looking rather distinctly like the old JPS colours in the world of Formula One. Thing I love about this paddock in Porsche Cup, it's not just about racing cars going quickly. There is also an element of passion that goes into this as well. And you really get to see some fantastic competitors, some great competition from some amazing people who love to paint their cars up in for the passion and the grandeur event. You have to look at the number 27 that we saw on Yosimar Jr. coming up with the goods to pop up that beautiful Ayrton Senna color scheme that he has on his Porsche. The colors of Ayrton Senna's traditional helmet colors. Always really exciting to competition in such a great form. So now we just run through the previous Porsche Carrera Cup qualifying category, and we wait for the drivers to be sent off on their way in the Porsche Challenge Cup. 2 sessions for them, and then we'll wrap up proceedings here in Termas de Río Hondo in Argentina. The race tomorrow is looking likely to be a really exciting challenge. So just running through the highlights then of this fantastic competition at Termas de Río Hondo. The 2 categories really putting on an excellent display here and showcasing how brilliant this fantastic circuit is. Wide race circuit this, with a lot of overtaking opportunities going into the race tomorrow. For sure, we're going to have a really exciting and enticing, tantalizing race battle between the contenders in the Porsche Carrera Cup main category. Big story here, but this big slide from Cesar Ramos and a little bit of a slip and slide earlier on in the session from the number 25. Lucas Salas and Rafael Suzuki are the drivers that have been able to come through and put together a really sizable and neat run. So we're only now going to have 12 cars making on circuit for the remaining 2 Challenge Cups runs. This is the Endurance Series of Brazil, of course, brought to you by C6 Bank. There are only going to be 12 cars that will venture out onto the course for these 2 Challenge qualifying sessions. It'll be a combination of Salzer and Bonifacio, Gajinski and Gonçalves, Landi and Filho, Herman and Batista, Santos and Roba, Bertuccelli and Rimbano, then Roque and Batista, Cedric Leiter and Fabio Carboni, Antonella Bassani and Letizia Buffoni, then Elsevier Manito and Gabriel Casagrande, from Garcia and Rebello, and Reina and Gonçalves. Not quite as many cars in the mix as we had for the earlier race of the Endurance Championship race that took place in Estoril in Portugal, but certainly enough race cars to give us plenty of great race battles and excitement out there on the course. So we're going to have 12 cars waiting at the end of the pit lane, and their first drivers will send them out onto the course for the 3rd qualifying session. Important to separate the Challenge and the Carrera Cup drivers in their 2 sessions. So we get ourselves ready on the Circuito de Río Hondo in Argentina, right by the coast. Great race circuit. This always provides magnificent race battles and fantastic drama. And we're going to see some really close proximity race driving from all of these contenders. They really do give us an amazing and epic display when the best of the cars go out onto the course. So here at Termas de Río Hondo, the drivers just getting themselves lined up and dialed in for one pair of sessions, 20 minutes each as the drivers head out onto the course. Managed to get really close with the drone. The ambition of the camera crews here. You really do get to have some very close aspects of this circuit. So hopefully we're going to get to see a relatively straightforward pair of qualifying sessions of 20 minutes. Only 12 drivers out there setting up times across these two sessions, 12 cars to get to the session. So it's going to be a really interesting situation as the Carrera Cup drivers have obviously packed away their toys and limped back to the hotel. So the knowledge that Rafael Suzuki and to see as we prepare racing. So as the drivers get themselves to the end of the pit lane, there's obviously 12 competitors in the challenge version of the Porsche Carrera Cup. For the drivers less experienced in general, either the rookies who are really starting out in the sport or those competitors who are doing this purely for a hobby rather than for a career. So we'll get to see as all of the competitors continue to race in close proximity over the course of these final two qualifying sessions. Should be a very interesting and lasting battle for all of the contenders as they continue to race forward for another close proximity session. Interesting battle for all of the contenders as they run through. Still, the racing is going to be quite close tomorrow when we get into the main body of the endurance race. Means that the drivers will now venture out onto the course, out onto the circuit. They're going in 20 minutes on the course. Don't tell me we're going to down in pit lane. Cars have been released, and one of the cars doesn't appear to be moving. The door's open. That's not going to happen. So we've had one car be released out onto the circuit, and that's Landy's car. Certainty. So the contenders having an interesting scenario, some tough battles out on the course, as the races is still very interesting for all of the contenders out there on the course, and a really exciting battle still to contend with. So with the drivers still battling away, we should see a really exciting and close proximity race battle. Drivers continuing to give us a good showcase. But I've got a feeling that that's not a script. It's always Landy. So one car has left the pits. The others are all there queued to get out. And I don't see Lewis Landy's car moving anywhere. There's a couple of drivers who are taking the opportunity to lift the lid. Well, you can see the Lightning McQueen there in the least. That is the 83. Having a very interesting race weekend for that Porsche in its new Lightning McQueen colours. Driver, of course, Alcy Felmanito, sharing that car with Gabriel Casagrancha, who is, of course, the double champion in Stock Pro Series. It'll be fabulous to see everybody finish off in grand style. Always nice to see the Brazilian flag resplendent atop the paddock. Although, of course, we're not in Brazil on this particular occasion for the Endurance Race Series. We're here in Termas de Río Hondo in neighboring Argentina. Well, it looks to me one Porsche has left the pits, but it's not the one we thought it was going to be, because the session hasn't actually started yet. I thought one of the Porsches that left the pits was actually a race car, but in fact, it's not the case. So we wait, obviously, for the contenders to release the Porsche Endurance Series Brazil Challenge drivers, of which there are 12 cars in total. Only one from the Pro class, by the look of it, Sadek Leiter and Fabio Carbone. Everything else is either the sport or rookie category across the Challenge Cup. So it'll be fascinating to see how the drivers venture out. Now going out onto the circuit, that is the number 2, overtaking everybody and heading out onto the circuit. That is Souza and Bonifacio. So is that the start of the session? No, it's not. Souza's gone out onto the circuit before the timer has started to tick down. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, I have to say. So hopefully I'll be able to give you an update when I have some more information. But at the moment, it's a very interesting situation for them. So finally we get the green light on the challenge qualifying session. 20 minutes on the board. And so the drivers want to continue the second phase of the Porsche Endurance Challenge Brazil here at Termas de Río Hondo in Argentina. Jake Sanson with you for the second half of our qualifying phase. Two groups battling away in position. And we will conclude proceedings with these final two groups on the course. Only 12 cars are going to actually make this a part of their broadcast program. 12 cars will go out onto the circuit for these two groups. It's going to be a really exciting battle all the way to the death here to try and see which drivers are going to come forward to make the distinctive progress that they need to conclude proceedings here. So obviously the drivers looking for a decent run to start things off and looking for a good procedure. They obviously want to make sure that they've got good purchase and good speed right from the start. It's not an easy circuit this to get used to. It's quite a fast flowing racetrack and it gives drivers good balance when you get it right. It can be a little bit more intriguing if you've got it slightly wrong. But certainly the drivers with a good chance to make solid progress in the Motorsport Brigade here. So the 12 cars that are out on the circuit just trying to make further progress. Certainly beginning to see some good performances at the moment. Drivers just getting themselves up to speed. Rebelo and Garcia in the 808 car. Salza and Bonifacio will share the number 2. Filio and Landi racing in the 19. Then Alcifel Manito sharing his car, of course, with the two-time Stock Car Pro race champion, Gabriel Casagrande. There's been some really close quality and great battles between the drivers out on the qualifying sessions in the past. But the racing is really going to be tight all the way throughout. If we go into tomorrow with the grid likely to be in the positions we think they're going to be. So still the drivers look very close quarters in the mix. We're also going to see Claudio Reina and Gonçalves sharing together. Gajinski and Gonçalves sharing a car as well, of course. Rebelo and Garcia, Souza and Bonifacio, Giuliano Bertuccelli and Piero Amado, Roque and Batista, Santos and Robert, Sadak Laita and Fabio Carbone sharing a car, of course, along with Leonardo Herman and Vitor Batista. Reina and Gonçalves coming out on the circuit in the Treble 9, and of course the all-lady crew of Antonella Bassani and Letizia Buffoni, who I have to say, last time we raced in the Endurance Championship at Estoril, they had an absolute nightmare. It couldn't be described anything other than the worst possible race weekend the two of them could have asked for. It was never going to be an exciting challenge for the contestants. Now that they've got their car, there is the Rusty's livery. That is going to be shared for this race by Alcifel Manito of certain. Paying the car. There was a little bit of footage released earlier in the week from Liam Lawson. Actually said the reason I'm in any capacity because of Andy McQueen and the Disney Cars franchise. So we just saw Gold and Black Machine, the Mobile 1 car of Antonella Buffoni female crew. That is obviously looking to have a much better race of it. The last time out at Estoril, this is the all-female crew of Antonella Bassani, Isia Buffoni. An incredible, of course, Antonella Bassani, the teenage, the reigning Challenge Cup competitor and the reigning Challenge champion. talented racing driver. He has a lot of talent. We could well be seeing Simafoni alongside her move forward, but you can see the massages are currently underway for some down in pit lane. As they're trying to race preparation. The team. Yeah, Antonella Bassani, who is the former Porsche Carrera champion, the reigning champion, of course, and make it championship titles in before. I think she has a great opportunity to play into national competition. We get Le Mans one day having Porsches, and of course she shares that car with the red athlete skateboarder Letizia Buffoni, who also just and she's doing a great job in the element of Porsche Brazil this year. Yeah, to see her getting a nice opportunity to move further forward with things, but obviously from her, she would dearly to start with only 12 cars. Okay, we would dearly, yeah, that's been off. Herman, so Herman has had a big off. We're on the course. That was not, was it? You can tell. So let's have a look at it. Leonardo Herman did. Speed carried into the corner. I mean, fair play just to save the car, bin it into the gravel. So I'm really looking forward to the possibility of more red over the course of proceedings. Another one is not required. Thank you very much. So there is the 83 back in pit lane. The car led by Velmanito. Still the two of them having a race at the moment. See Light currently the faster in front of Fabio Carboni. Well, alongside Fabio Carboni. Currently second place in front of Filio and Claudio Reina. Velmanito currently fifth in the 488. Just in front of Giuliano Bertuccelli, then Gonzalez and Antonella Bassani just dialing in the car. Not really up to speed yet. There is Tomfidio. Always nice to see these guys really putting the most they can out on the car, trying to find a little bit more pace. And still the drivers trying to look for that little bit of extra pace from the car, hoping that they're going to dial it in enough to really maximize the pace that is exerted from this machinery. But certainly here in Porsche Cup Brazil, it's been pretty competitive, pretty spicy, the racing so far in the endurance race earlier on this season. But Tom Filio looking to try and work his way forward. Sadok Leiter at the moment currently the fastest driver from the challenge group, sharing his car of course with Fabio Carboni. That's a wonderful sunset here in Argentina. The two sessions finished off before the sun actually. While these cars have headlights, exactly a circuit, I would recommend the drivers go 24-hour racing on. It gets very dark here at the best of times. There is Letizia Buffoni, the X Games athlete and skateboarding superstar. Certainly going about this the right way at the moment, looking at the times set by her stablemate Antonella Bassani, who's clearly gone to the top on a 1:05.347. There is her car, hopping over the curbs. Antonella Bassani doing a great job. She is currently leading the way here. Pole position looking good for her on a 1:45.347. She's the first one to really maximize pace, 1.4 seconds ahead of the next best car. So obviously the competition still very tight. Over the sharp end of the days here. Is Antonella Bassani going to find even more time from the car as she comes across the line? Certainly looking good at the moment. Antonella Bassani looking to find as much pace as possible. To 8, that's Rabello coming through to second position. The gap is down to 0.8 of a second. So Antonella Bassani's time of a 1:45.347 was not beaten on the last rotation. Salaglaite in third, Leonardo Herman in fourth, from Roque, Matis Roque in front of Tom Filio. Then Juliano Bertuquet, Dario Reina, Edu Santos. And then we have Gonçalves in front of the car that's currently at the back of the field, and that is Alsu Felmanito. But clearly, Alsu Felmanito has not found the pace yet. We need to look out for number 83. I think it's the car behind this one. Is running currently in second position. This is Rebello sharing the car with Garcia. But if you look in the background, you're also going to see Alcito sharing his car, of course, with Antonio Casagran. 9 minutes to go in the session. We had a big moment in this one, of course, Leonardo Herman, but fortunately not enough to bring out the red flags. There is this session, and then there is one more, of course. There is Rebello. Second position on the road, as well as right behind Antonella Stani, the talented teenage racer. And she's definitely unlocked and best nice 1:45.347. Don't think that's going to be matched by anybody for a while. Certainly within 0.8 of a second, though. That's where you need to be. So Rebello has found another 10th, has brought that gap down from 0.85 to 0.75. And where is Alcio Felmanito going to factor in? Well, the 83 has moved up to 10th, 2.8 seconds adrift of Antonella Bassali. But if I'm Alcio Felmanito, I certainly don't want to be in a position where I remain 2.8 seconds back from Antonella Bassali. And of course, the real pole position comes from when you add the times from this session to the times of the next one for the second driver within each car. And that's when we really get to see the best of these drivers. And now, hang on, that's a really slow-moving Rebello. Is that just slow-moving to get out of people's way, or is that a car that's actually in the process of breaking down? Very hard to tell. Well, certainly at the moment, Alcio Felmanito going fast down on pit lane. We just saw the inset there of Gajinski, 17. Oh yeah, I thought it was breaking down. I thought it was braking, didn't think that was just slowing to get out of people's way. But that's a car that's stopped out on the circuit. We do not need another red flag. So this could well be a red flag. Certainly it's currently a stationary yellow flag, but the car is stopped out on the race circuit itself. So with 7 minutes remaining in the session, we really don't need to be in a situation where the red flags can come out and cause a bit of a headache. So the drivers are taking this opportunity to come into the pits, knowing that there's going to be yellow flags present at that part of the course. There is Alcio Felmanito, who's getting his car up to speed. 6.5 minutes left of the session. But that car stationary does have me worried. I'm not the only one who appears to be worried about that. That's a stationary car out on the actual circuit itself. It's not off the line, is it? It's on the racetrack. So I think this could trigger a red flag if we're not careful. And there it is. The red flag is called. So that stops the session for the time being. And that is a big disappointment for this particular run. Isn't it always the first group? Certainly is this weekend. But the red flag comes out with 6 minutes and 19 left. Now the advantage of that, I suppose, is that they won't need to add more time on to the end of the session. But 6 minutes and 19. There is actually going to be a penalty for the number 17, and that's for speeding in the pit lane. So that is not good news for Gajinski, but even more bad news for this pair of Garcia. Garcia having a problem then, and that has brought out the red flag. The delay that we just didn't need in this session. At least the wildlife are enjoying the motorsport. And this is why we are under red flag. Garcia and Rebello. It is Rebello who had just gone second position. Clearly something had gone wrong with the car and he decided, well, I'm going to try and get it back to the pits. He couldn't make it back to the pits in the end, as it turned out. So instead of parking off the racetrack at a marshal post, he stops the car on the racetrack. And I have to say, if you're going to make a faux pas, then Rebello has definitely done it in the proper way. So we're under red flag conditions here as a result of the stoppage in that particular practice run. Very unfortunate because up until that point, everything was running tickety-boo. But on this particular occasion, we now bring ourselves to a red flag period. Now, it shouldn't be a long red flag, I point out, because the rescue crews here are pretty quick in the world of Brazilian motorsport. So what will happen is that the car will just be towed on the truck and it will be pulled off to the racing line, and then we'll be able to continue on with the qualifying session. 6 minutes 19 left of this session. And then, of course, we will have the final 20-minute qualifying session after this one, when the drivers get out of the cars, out of Q1, hand over to the second drivers in Q2, and then we'll be able to wrap up and rock and roll. But we certainly didn't need a second red flag from the qualifying session here in the endurance run of the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. That's Tom Filio behind the wheel of the 19. And there is the teenage talent, Antonella Bassani, reigning Porsche champion of Brazil in the Challenge Cup. She is a really incredible racing driver, Antonella Bassani. Certainly has had some amazing races so far this year, and definitely a hot talent for the future in sports car racing. And obviously now there is a slight pause in the proceedings while we wait for the red flag to obviously be sorted out and the recovery crew to take possession of the car. It looks like they're getting a spare car ready. That's what's brilliant about the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil as well. They have a fleet of spare cars that they can maximize if a particular car has a mechanical problem. Just looking back over some of the highlights of the session previously, I think there briefly, but certainly the number 72 was on that spare Porsche. So that looks like, yeah, that's the 72 car. So that is actually the spare car reserved for Bassani and Buffoni. At least that was the car that they used last time out at Estoril. So it still carries the number 72 that they used. So we'll just give the officials the opportunity to come in and make the requisite replacements. And then we can go back into the session once the car has been recovered. So back into the session we go then. Red flag, but a red flag it was nonetheless. Myself geared up, ready for the next phase of the session. Just under 6 minutes left of qualifying in the first group. So the drivers in this phase, of course, will continue on and complete things from their perspective. 6 minutes more of time qualifying as we continue in close proximity. But it will be 5.5 minutes now of the session. I'm not sure anybody's really going to be able to hold a candle to the lap time there set by Antonella Bassani. What's going to be fascinating, of course, is when we get to the second part of the session when the drivers swap over, and then we'll have drivers like Gabriel Casagrancia and Fabio Carbone getting behind the wheel. That's when things can really mix up. Of course, remember that the times are taken from both the sessions to put us into a good position. So we have to make sure that the drivers are in good position. So the competitors just trying to finish off the run. Looks like a little bit of a conversation there down in pit lane. Assessing the situation and obviously trying to gauge what the next decision-making process is going to be for the drivers out there. Loving the banter in this particular field as well. That's one of the things we love about the Porsche Brazil Championship in both the Carrera Cup and the Challenge. It's always particularly exciting and enticing to see how things are likely to progress. But as you can see there, that is Gonçalves getting herself ready for the next phase of the qualifying session. One driver preparing to get ready there in the close proximity of the final phase of the qualifying session. In fact, no, my apologies. I think I misspoke there just before. That is actually Cecilia Rebelo, who obviously stopped the car out on the circuit. Well, Cecilia Rebelo tried her best to get the car back to the pits. Isn't it amazing that the first two drivers in the field here in the Porsche Cup Brasil Challenge category, the two fastest drivers, are both women. Rebelo's car still the second quickest at the moment in front of this man, Alcivel Manito, in the Lightning McQueen colours of the number 83 Porsche. So the men are currently 1.2 seconds down on Antonella Bassani and half a second down on Cecilia Rebelo. So if you ever wanted to stop a session and have a nice argument to suggest that women are just as good as men in the world of Porsche Carrera Cup, well, this is a perfect advert for it, because the first two cars are currently driven by the female contenders Antonella Bassani and Cecilia Rebelo. So let's see how it all continues to progress. Third position for Alcivel Manito, fourth place for Sada Gleiter, fifth position for the 45 car. So obviously the challenge has been a very exciting one in the first part of the procedure. That 45 car, of course, is the car that is being driven by Matthias Roque. As Sada Gleiter now comes up to second position. So Sada Gleiter decides to split the two ladies at the sharp end of the dais. So now it is Antonella Bassani, 0.6 of a second quicker than Sada Gleiter and 0.7 of a second quicker than Cecilia Rebelo. Tom Filio has worked his way up into fourth position in the times. But this man, Alcivel Manito, really wants to displace a few drivers in front of him. He wants to put Lightning McQueen up to the top spot. Oh, and he loses it completely. Well, he always tries to find the limit, Alcivel Manito, fairly rapidly. But he's just gone a little bit too far over the apron there. Just ran wide on the corner that most drivers seem to be running wide on this particular part of the course, with a minute and a half to go in the session as well. So I don't really see Alcivel Manito managing to go any quicker, because obviously you've worn the tyres down. Let's see a replay. Alcivel Manito just comes in a shot. The back end's on the grass. Whoops. And already a big pirouette there for Alcivel Manito. How lucky for the car that was following in behind. There you can see the back end starting to come around. He's just carried too much speed. There's the grass. And Alcivel Manito, the back end's trying to overtake the front. So Alcivel Manito swaps ends there, and look at this. How close was it for the car following behind? That was a nasty moment. There's the third view. Runs out wide, catches the grass, scratches the gravel, spits the car out. That was tight. Well, fortunately, there was no contact made, and Alcivel Manito is able to keep going again then in the session. And he'll bring it through, but I have a feeling the tyres are not going to be good enough for him to make any more of an impact in this session. So I can promise you that Alcivel Manito is now going to be out of contention. So he comes out of the final turn to try and get another final lap in. Whoa, there's a big smoke screen. Somebody's kicked up some dust on the main straight, and that's who. Well, a big moment there for Claudio Reina, losing the car out of the final turn. So Claudio Reina really losing the car on the final corner, and I think that's going to bring an end to the session anyway, because if they were to red flag this, then it would be done and dusted anyhow. But it very much is game over for Claudio Reina. No more fast laps to come from Claudio in this session anyway. But it really is done and dusted. And look at that, the car is buried in the gravel. So it's the end of qualifying for the first session of the Challenge Cup anyway. The time had already run down to 0. So that pretty much puts the mockers on it. And so Antonella Bassani gets a time that is a full 0.6 of a second quicker than Sadak Leiter. It's been a really solid performance from Sadak Leiter, ahead of Cecilia Rebelo. Tom Filio in 4th position, and after that little spin earlier on, Alcifel Manito coming through for 5th position in the Lightning McQueen car. So the contenders having an excellent display and a great run for all of the drivers out there, but Antonella Bassani does a great job to get the fastest lap time in the mix there, a 1:45.347, and that'll do nicely as far as the contenders here are concerned. An excellent run from Antonella Bassani. That's going to be hard to catch up to for the other drivers in the second group. So we're now just waiting for the final 20-minute session. The drivers trying to get the last run. A fantastic run, and Antonella Bassani gets the top spot. From Sadak Leiter in 2nd position, Cecilia Rebelo, despite breaking down and bringing out the red flags, the time was still good enough for 3rd position. An excellent performance for all of the contenders and the competitors out there. Excellent run for all of the contenders in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil endurance race here at Termas de Río Hondo. We're going to see a replay of some of the highlights from that particular group. But the big story here is that Antonella Bassani, the teenage talent, is going to remain in the top position, certainly for the time being. 0.6 of a second ahead of Sadak Leiter. Cecilia Rebelo, 3rd place in front of Tom Filio. But they will now hand their cars over to their stablemates, and obviously they will now have the second qualifying session to come up after this one. It'll be the same cars, but it will be their stablemate drivers that will come in. But certainly the teenage talent, Antonella Bassani, has gone beautifully fast in that one. 0.6 of a second quicker than Sadak Leiter. And obviously for the reigning Porsche Challenge Cup champion of Brazil, the teenage lady, Antonella Bassani, doing an absolutely sensational job and a great performance out there. She will now hand the car over to her teammate, Letizia Buffoni, the Red Bull-backed X Games skateboarding athlete from Brazil, who did a fantastic job in the Olympic Games recently, of course. So it will be fantastic to see whether she can maintain the similar sort of pace. Of course, this car, the Lightning McQueen colours of Alcifel Manito, they are being handed over now to Gabriel Casagrancha. So that's going to be particularly exciting. So let's see what the 2-time Stock Car Pro Series champion is able to do when he takes over the Lightning McQueen colours. I think the likelihood of Gabriel Casagrancha getting the pole position time is pretty much about as likely as me scratching my nose in the next 5 minutes. It really is going to be a dead cert for Gabriel Casagrancha, the way that he has been driving of late in the Porsches as stablemate and obviously as driver coach as well to Alcifel Manito. So it will be a fascinating conclusion to the proceedings here. So let's see how the competitors look forward to the race battles out on the course. There is the 19, Tom Filio, managing to go 4th fastest in his session as we watch the last moments of the competition from the first qualifying group. Just a few short moments time then before we let the drivers go out onto the session for the second group. Drivers will swap from their teammates and the same 12 cars will go out. Can Gabriel Casagrancha take the pole position, or will Letizia Buffoni drive this car to the top spot in qualifying again? We are moments away from finding out. Well, that looks to me like one of the spare cars is being prepared. It's got the number 72 on it. So I wonder, has Antonella Bassani's car developed a fault, in which case they're going to hand the spare car over to her teammate Letizia Buffoni. We can only wait and find out. Look at that gorgeous skyline. It's wonderful being at the Termas de Río Hondo circuit, one of the most picturesque in the world of motorsport. Drivers are swapping over, and we are not far away from the second half of the challenge of Porsche Endurance Challenge Brazil, qualifying here in Argentina. Well, that certainly looks to me like there's going to be a change of car. Antonella Bassani clearly going to hand over. Well, clearly they've decided that Letizia Buffoni wants to run one of the spare cars. Does she feel a bit nervous about the possibility of destroying the 72 race car of Antonella Bassani? I wonder, because obviously Antonella's got to continue driving that car in the latter stages of the race. Either that, or they want to make some very acute setup adjustments to the car. Now, you are allowed to race different cars as long as you run under the same team name, as long as you run under the same entry. So clearly, Letizia Buffoni is being afforded the chance to race her own car, or at least I should say one of the backup cars, in collaboration with Antonella Bassani. You are allowed to do that in the Porsche Endurance Challenge in Brazil, provided that you get special dispensation in order to do that. So we go into the second session then of the challenge, and there is Gabriel Casagrande in the Rusties Lightning McQueen, number 83 Porsche. Almost certainly you are going to see this car go to the top spot because the two-time Stock Car Pro Series Brazil champion, Gabriel Casagrande, no lean contender, won the championship in 2021 and is the reigning champion of 2023. So the contenders just trying to find that little bit of extra pace in the car in the latter stages of the proceedings here. Sales are the first one to actually go out on the course. Casagrande not far behind as well. Then Lino Landi. Rimbano has gone out onto the circuit in the car that's vacated by Giuliano Bertuccelli. Fabio Carboni sharing his with Sada Gleiter. Edu Santos in Gabriel Roba's car. Felipe Batista is, of course, now sharing his car with Matis Roque. And Felipe Batista is having the form of his life in 2024. Of course, Felipe Batista battling for the Stock Car Pro Series title. Having a great battle in that competition, racing as he is as the main championship rival of Felipe Massa, the former Grand Prix driver and race winner for Ferrari. Also, of course, two-time winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Gabriel Casagrande then getting his car up to speed, the number 83. This is a great circuit for someone like Gabriel Casagrande. This is the kind of race circuit where you do a session like this. You get behind the wheel of the car, and then you go back and you talk to your friends in the Stock Car Pro Series Brazil, and then you start conversations that start with the phrase, why don't we race at Termas de Rio Hondo? And then the conversation gets bigger. Then more people start joining the conversation going, yes, actually, it's a great race circuit. Why don't we race there? And then incredibly, within 18 months, a deal will likely be done to bring Stock Car Pro Series Brazil to Termas de Rio Hondo. We're certainly in that phase of racing in international competition. The Brazilian championships don't just want to stay in Brazil. They do want to go on tour. They do want to find other race circuits to play on. And so you do get a little bit of that, which is always quite nice to see. But certainly for the competitors up at the sharp end of the dais in this second half of the Porsche Challenge Cup, it's going to be interesting to see who can really match the pace of Antonella Bassani from the original session. But it is interesting to note that Letizia Bavoni not feeling particularly confident in sharing Antonella Bassani's car. I do wonder if part of that is down to the fact that Antonella Bassani essentially has decided that, or maybe even Letizia Bavoni has decided, you know, that's your race car that you race in the main championship. I'm not entirely sure I want to take that opportunity away from you. It's going to be a tall order for the contenders. But Antonella Bassani, having set the initial pace, and now, of course, Letizia Bavoni gets to do the same thing when she goes out in the car. But certainly the competition is going to be for this pole position line. Just a whisker over 15 minutes to go in the session. You're currently looking at two drivers really pushing the limits now that they've got themselves up to speed. One of those is the 17, that is Gajinski, being taken over from Gonçalves. There is Gajinski behind the wheel, the number 17 Teltec car. And you also, I think, see Vitor Batista behind the wheel, having taken over from Leonardo Herrmann. So Vitor Batista, who's of course working closely with Leonardo Herrmann as his driver coach. 15 minutes left of the session, and you really do get to see the best of Vitor Batista. There is Antonella Bassani just tuning in and watching along from the pit lane now, trying to see how her teammate Letizia Bavoni is getting on in that car. Antonella Bassani full of confidence after poling it in the first session, and with 0.6 of a second advantage over Sada Gleiter, she can be quite confident going into it. Have you noticed Alcivel Manito, having got out of his car, giving the thumbs down to Antonella Bassani, clearly not happy with the pace she set. I don't want to be a second off the pace of Antonella Bassani, thank you very much. But Alcivel Manito sadly doesn't really have any choice in the matter. That's the way the wind blows. Well, we've got red flags on the circuit. Just as if we didn't need more stoppages, we've got one in the second round of the challenge. 14 minutes and 21 seconds still remaining, but we've got another yellow, we've got another red flag. Now, who is it this time? Well, it's that car there that's stationary out on the right-hander. So we need to figure out which it is. Oh, it's the same car. So it's Garcia who's taken over from Cecilia Rebelo. And so the car has stopped out on the circuit again. So whatever problems they thought they might have got on top of, they certainly haven't. And it's now an even bigger disappointment for the contenders in this one. So a little change of tyres then for Gabriel Casagrancha in the 83 car. It's a perfect timing, a good opportunity to actually make this one work out in favour. But there is Garcia. Stopped out on the circuit, almost in exactly the same place as we saw from Cecilia Ramelo. So even more problems. The cars all brought back into the pits. They can change the tyres there. Now, hopefully, again, that's going to be a fairly quick fix as the recovery car goes out to find Garcia and recover the car and move it off the line. Unfortunately, as you can see, it's only at turn 1, so this should be, hopefully, a fairly quick red flag. But a red flag is still a red flag. It's still a delay in the scheduled programming. So for the third time in 4 sessions, we now have a red flag out on the circuit here at Termas de Río Hondo in the Porsche Cup Brasil qualifying session. The drivers have all come back in, so hopefully they'll be able to work their magic to finish up the session in relatively good pace. We don't want to spend too many more minutes waiting for recoveries or drivers to push too hard and crash out on the circuit. So it's going to be a final conclusion that the drivers will hopefully be able to reach very soon indeed. But there'll be 14 minutes and 21 seconds left of the session when we resume. And it's still really difficult for me to see how any of the other cars, other than maybe Gabriel Casagrancha in the number 83 car, how they can find 0.6 of a second more than their competitors out there on the circuit. So there is there's the team combination of Matias Roque and his stablemate in the number 17 car, number 45 car, sorry, Felipe Batista. Felipe Batista, a driver we're quite used to seeing in the world of Stock Car Pro, battling for the victory. Quick change of tyres then for the 44 crew. That is the team that have currently gone quickest, with Rimbano at the wheel, sharing that car, of course, with Giuliano Bettichelli. So we're just waiting for these cars to then be prepared, having had their final driver change. And then as soon as they are tyres changed and the recovery of Garcia and Ribelo's car is confirmed, we can head out onto the circuit for the final 14 minutes. There is Fabio Carbone getting himself ready to go. Showing that car, of course, with Sadek Leiter. Look at that sunset. That is what the Termas de Río Hondo can give you. That is a beautiful Argentine skyline. That's worth waiting for, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful skylines here in Argentina on the Termas de Río Hondo circuit. Any moment now, they'll be sent out as the clock starts to tick again. Fortunately, that is a resumption of the session. Hopefully that is the last red flag of the 3 red flags we have had so far during time qualifying. But my goodness me, look at that. That's worth waiting for, isn't it? So back out onto the circuit then for 13.5 minutes more. And there is Letizia Buffoni. They have decided to put her in a different car to Antonella Bassani's race car. I wonder if that's just preservation, ready for the race. Letizia Buffoni obviously wants to make sure the team can have the best possible chance tomorrow. But with Antonella Bassani putting the car on pole position in her session, I think Letizia Buffoni is very much aware that if she has an accident in it and breaks it, then the team have got a hell of a lot more hard work to do tomorrow to repair the car and get it back up to speed. So Letizia Buffoni deciding, do you know what? I know I'm not the racing driver that Antonella Bassani is. I love racing and I love being her teammate, but I don't want to give either her or the mechanics that burden. I'm just going to go out there in one of the backup cars with a 72 that's registered to us, and I'm going to do the best I can. And if I do crash and burn it, at least then I'm not destroying the race car. That's the different type of racing drivers that we've got here in the Porsche Endurance Challenge Brazil. A lot of the drivers actually want to set the lap time in the race car because obviously they'll get a more natural feel. They've dialed in the car exactly the way they want it, and they take that data into the race. And obviously you're using the same race car to do that, so it makes more sense to set the qualifying time in the same car. However, for a team like Antonella Bassani and Letizia Buffoni, look, Antonella Bassani is the professional racing driver of the two of them. She's the one with the long career in the sport. Letizia Buffoni is an X Games Red Bull athlete. She's a skateboarding pro. She's here doing this because she loves driving cars. But she would not be the first one to call herself a professional racing driver. She's here for the joy of racing in the Porsche Brazil community. So she doesn't want to be the burden that lets the team down. So from her point of view, if they've got a good race car, leave it as it is. And those are the opportunities that Porsche Brazil affords its clients and customers. Let's give them a chance to have a little bit less pressure, a little bit less stress going into the event. And so it obviously gives them a little bit more of a chance to be more comfortable with the situation that they are provided with. So there is the number 2 car. The car that, of course, is still very much in contention for the win this weekend. Currently being shared, of course, as it is, by Bonifacio and Luis Souza. Bonifacio is the one at the wheel at the moment, of course, having taken over from Souza from the first session. So Bonifacio really wants to get a decent lap under his belt. Just over 10 minutes left of the session. And so still the drivers just trying to find their paces and look for a little bit more speed around the course here at Termas de Río Hondo. Great race circuit this in Argentina. I think it's third only to the likes of the second best racing circuit in Argentina for me, which is the Oscar Juan Galvez Autodromo, which used to host the Formula 1 Grand Prix. And of course, I don't care whether the circuit isn't open anymore, but for motor racing purists, the greatest racing circuit in Argentina is, without argument, Potrero de los Funes, the circuit that races around a volcanic lake. Absolutely amazing racetrack. Whether it's still functional or not, it will still be the best race circuit in the mix in Argentina. But this is absolutely in third position and certainly provides us with some magnificent races. Certainly World Touring Cars had a ball when they came here. There is young Alcivel Benito watching out on the course. His teammate, not that that's who's on screen at the moment, but Alcivel Benito certainly enjoying life in the new Lightning McQueen colours. There is the Coppert machine, the number 23. That is the car that, of course, is usually raced by Leonardo Herman, and it certainly was in the first part of qualifying, but it's Vitor Batista who is now behind the wheel of the car, the Stock Car Pro driver. So it's definitely been a very entertaining section of the race for them. 9 minutes left of qualifying. Hopefully everybody except for the number 808 is going to get a lap time in, because of course, as we know, Garcia, the car broke down before they could even set a lap time after the problems that Cecilia Ribeiro actually faced in the previous running of it. Letizia Buffoni trying to get the car to go quick, but currently 4 seconds a lap slower than the pace of Gabriel Casagrande. who, as I predicted, is not only at the top, but by 0.6 of a second. Mind you, there could be a bit of a challenge, because less than 1/10 of a second off the pace now. That is the 44 car of Rimbano. Looks like track limits have been exerted there by the treble 9. That is Gonçalves, having shared the car with Claudio Reina, but there is Gabriel Casagrancha in the Lightning McQueen Porsche. If he can just push it that little bit further forward and find a few more tenths, then he can rest a bit easy going into the second half of this qualifying session. Alcivel Benito keeping a watching brief of his teammate and driver coach. So where Alcivel Benito is not quite able to maximize the speed and find an extra second on Antonella Bassani, Gabriel Casagrancha is able to find more than 5 seconds more than Letizia Buffoni, the driver who has taken the spare, the driver who has taken the spare Porsche in order to try and get a similar run off the turn as Antonella Bassani. But the two-time Stock Car Pro Series champion, Gabriel Casagrancha, currently on the top spot. There's the 66, that is Fabio Carbone, and he catches the grass on the way through. That was lucky. It was Bruno Bonifacio that they were just trying to get out of the way of, because Bonifacio was cruising around slowly, trying to get the car back up to speed again. Down the straight, headlights not ablaze. I'm actually surprised because the light is fading fast here in Argentina. And the drivers are obviously going to want to finish up in a good position here. Try and finish things off in the best possible frame of mind. But Gabriel Casagrancha currently at the top spot. Rimbano in second position. Then it is Claudio Reina, third position after the off earlier on. So Claudio Reina obviously spinning off in the closing phase of Q1. They got that car out of the gravel and have been able to get it going again for the second part of qualifying. It's Gonçalves that's behind the wheel now. Gabriel Horber, fourth position, another driver with plenty of pedigree. Racing as he currently is, of course, in the Stock Car Pro Series. Gabriel Horber for the Joaquim Gara racing team, one of the newest in Stock Car Pro Series Brazil. But we are currently watching Fabio Carbone, who has got to find about a second to be on similar pace as Gabriel Casagrancha. Will you find a second? Well, that's debatable. But certainly in terms of the way things are currently shaping up, it's looking very good indeed if your name is Gabriel Casagrancha or Alcivel Benito. They're definitely making up the time that is required to think about pole position. They were about a second off the pace in the previous session. Now they're 4.5 seconds up. So let's see if in the final 5 minutes of the session, Casagrancha can find even more time to push himself further forward. Certainly of the cars that are out there on the circuit, Casagrancha is set to be the quickest when you take the 2 sessions into consideration. The meantime is going to be a 1:45.220. Then, of course, you're going to have Fabio Carbone is going to bring that car to second position in the rankings the way it currently stands. Then the 23 of Vito Bautista and Leonardo Herman. Then the 44 of Rimbano and Bertuchelli. Unfortunately, Letizia Buffoni's best race lap at the moment, which is 5.8 seconds away from the pace set by Gabriel Casagrancha, is definitely dragging the team's average down. And we watch the 45, trying to work its way back further forward. Certainly looking at the moment from Felipe Bautista. He's got that car in a second position, but where is the 45 likely to be after the time qualifying? Well, good enough for third position in the class. So the final phases of racing. Look how tight it is for Felipe Bautista. He really pushes the car there to try and get that little bit of maximum pace. He's only 1/10 of a second down now on Gabriel Casagrancha's time of a 1:43.86. When you combine Casagrancha's time with Alcivel Benito's, they are going to be pole position of the challenge group. Just bring it home in the closing stages now, boys and girls. Let's get to the flag. Largely, of course, because the light is fading fast here in Argentina. And that beautiful skyline, that sunset is very nice to look at. But ultimately, the drivers need to be able to see where they're going. So the daylight running out on us is causing a little bit of a headache for the teams and the drivers here. Just a whisker over 3 minutes left of the session though. Certainly on the home stretch for the qualifying session here. And it's been a really competitive run for all the drivers. They've certainly given us a really entertaining qualifying session, as the drivers are still really focused and committed on making sure we run to the closing phase. But it's certainly Gabriel Casagrande who's going to get the lap time that he was hoping for. I think he's gone quickest again. Yes, he has, a 1:43.867, even quicker. Felipe Batista, then Ribano, Gonçalves, Fabio Carboni, and Gabriel Horber. Bonifacio, Vito Batista, Leo Landi, then Gojinski, Letici Buffoni, and of course Garcia, who did not set a lap time. Because that car, of course, had mechanical difficulties, and that means that the 808 is actually going to be starting from 31st on the grid tomorrow, ahead of the likes of Bassani and Buffoni, because of course they didn't get an average time other than the time set by Cecilia Rubello, as Garcia was not able to get out there on the circuit and set a competitive time. 2 minutes to go then in the session. Felipe Batista doing his best to find that little bit of extra pace. That's a lot of curb. You get the feeling that Gabriel Casagrande is quite happy with that. They've parked the car, they've brought it into the pits. No need to push any further. Gonçalves have done the same with Reina, and that's Felipe Batista really exerting himself there to try and find that little bit of extra pace. He's gone clean off the road in his bid to try and catch up to Gabriel Casagrande's mark. And he's bailed it. He's come into the pits as well. He realised, I'm not going to get a faster time. The tyres are ruined. Let's call it. Second place will do. And of course, third place overall. Let's have a look. Easily done. Just carried so much speed through the left-hander. The car stuck out. He ended up catching the gravel on the inside line. And so that's game over for our very talented youngster, Felipe Batista. Final couple of attempts from the final few cars up there, but I think the writing's on the wall for everybody. I did say, did I not, that Gabriel Casagrande taking pole position was a bit like me scratching my nose in the next 5 minutes. Utterly predictable. And Alcivel Manito knows that when you put Gabriel Casagrande in his race car, he's a very, very tough man to beat. And the Lightning McQueen colours being at the sharp end of the Challenge Cup will definitely keep the younger viewers very happy, of course, here in Brazil as well. Here in the Porsche Brazil Challenge, I should say, because of course we are here at the Termas de Rio Hondo. There's Letici Buffoni. Oh no, sorry, that's the 808 car. So that is Garcia getting a chance to get a spare car. And this is the difficulty. You're not used to the spare car at all. You need to just try and hope that the car is going to be good enough to run through. But with that car having mechanical problems, they've been able to race back and put Garcia in one of the spare fleet cars. But that's a hefty car to get used to on the brake pedal. It's not been dialed in. So Garcia is going to be lucky to get a time under his belt at all, to be brutally honest. But everybody else has bailed except for Garcia and Leticia Buffoni. Garcia has set a time of 1:47.0, by the way. And Leticia Buffoni is looking to set a time in at least under 1:49.7. Her best time is currently that particular lap time. But we're waiting to see when she takes the checkered flag. There's Gajinski. Gajinski's going to come off the final turn and try and finish off the last qualifying lap. Is it okay to improve? It's not, nor is Garcia. So it's no change there. The last car that will cross the line is Leticia Buffoni. And when she does so, we'll get their final vote. There we go. So no change there. And that means that pole position in the challenge category goes the way of Gabriel Casagrande and Alcivel Manito. The car of Sada Gleiter and Fabio Carboni will be the second quickest when you take the two sessions into account. And Felipe Batista and Matias Roque are going to be together in third position. Fourth place for the 23 of Vito Batista and Leonardo Herman. Fifth place for the 44, that is Rimbano and Bertu Kelly. And then the treble 9 is in 6th. That is Gonçalves and Reina. 74 is next up. Not a great run, but also not a terrible one. They've actually gone quicker than a couple of the competitors, or one of the competitors, I should say, in the Porsche Carrera Cup itself. But a great run from Gabriel Casagrancha. He gets the top spot, sharing, of course, with Alcivel Manito. And it really is Rusty's over the sharp end of the field. Lightning McQueen does indeed go top. A good run from Felipe Batista and a good solid effort from the rest of the competitors in the field. Well, that's it from the qualifying sessions here at Termas de Río Hondo. Some great performances and some great race battles for our contenders. They certainly gave us plenty to talk about, but it's these two, Alcivel Manito and Gabriel Casagrancha, that take the pole position in the Challenge Cup after we saw Lucas Salas and Rafael Suzuki wrap up pole position overall for tomorrow's endurance race battle here at Termas de Río Hondo in Argentina. From Jake Sanson, thank you very much indeed for watching. That's qualifying done. Tomorrow, we go to the serious business of racing. Enjoy the action when you rejoin us tomorrow here in Argentina.